So you want to make a complex health component that can apply to everyone, including players, enemies, and destructibles. This advanced health system is similar to those used in professional-grade studios, and is designed to apply to everything, from the player to enemies to objects without rewriting any code. We'll do a health system and a UI system to show the health bar. This does cover complex topics such as creating dynamic bindings, but I will still break down how this works if you're not familiar with it. This tutorial is recommended for intermediate programmers, but beginners can still follow along. I still break everything down, and let me know if you have any suggestions. Well, we're going to go to Tools and new C++ class, and instead of adding a health component to each individual actor, we're going to create an actor component which can hatch on to any of our actors instead of rewriting code. We're going to call it health component, and we're going to create a new folder called components, and we can close Unreal Engine, and we can reload all if this pops up in Visual Studio. Now include file needs fixed, so just put your project name and then a / before the component's health component. We also don't need a tick, so we can delete the tick function, and we can delete the kind of a tick, so it'll be false by default. We can also delete this here, create a new public access modifier, and virtual void take damage with an input of damage as an integer. The virtual means that we can override this function in case we need to change it. So for example, instead of taking damage for an enemy, we add damage, well we can just override this function and make it so instead of taking damage, you're adding damage. We also want to do a function above all of these for blueprint callable. We're also going to do virtual void add health with an input for health, virtual void set health with an input of health as well. We can add all of these to our source file. We're going to want to create two more variables, view property, edit anywhere, and blueprint read only, called max health as an int, and one more for just blueprint read only, not edit anywhere, for current health. Now we are going to create an onDef function for when our health is 0, but instead of calling it in the component, it's going to be different for every enemy, for every destructible, for the player, or anything else. It will never be the same. So instead of writing it inside the component, we're going to do a delegate binding, which basically means we're going to bind the function to a component inside the player or inside the enemy. If you've ever done overlap events, you'll know how this works, but to create one yourself, do declare in all capitals above the U class and below the include files, declare underscore dynamic underscore multicast underscore delegate, and we're going to call it f on def. Then down here, we're going to do u property blueprint assignable, and it's going to be f on def, the same as what we put up here. And we're just going to call this on def without the f. Inside begin play, we're setting our current health equal to our max health. Inside take damage, we can just do current health minus equals damage, but that's a really simple system that's kind of flawed. What if you take too much damage, right? We don't want to go below 0. So instead of just subtracting it, we're going to set it to fmath clamp, and we're going to do current health minus damage. right? So this is going to subtract our current health with damage. We don't want to go below 0, and we don't want to go above max health. So that's what these two inputs are for. So that means when we change this variable, it will never go below 0, it will never go above max health. And if our current health is equal to 0, that means we need to call the onDef function or binding. So we're going to do onDef.broadcast. And we'll set this up inside a player character here. So inside the header file, we want to include a new component, a new property, which is visible anywhere. We print read only. And it's our class health health component. And we're just going to name it health1. Inside our source file, we're going to include this like any other component above here, which says health_comp equals create default sub object. The health component, and name it health component. As you can see, this is the exact same as any other component we have in here. If you watched the attacking tutorial I made, you'll see that we did a sword mesh on begin component overlap and bind it to our own function. This is the exact same concept. We are going to get our health component, and I just realized I need to add it up here. So include tutorial components health component. So that way we can get access to a health component. We're going to do onDef.add dynamic, and an open bracket this, and we need to create a new function. Just going to scroll down to the bottom inside protected, void onDef, no input needed. It does need to have new function because it is a binding. Unreal Engine needs to recognize this function. And we're going to create a definition inside here. I'm going to copy this and create an and sign and paste it in here. So that is how we bind our onDef function. Once this is called the broadcast, this function that we made will be called. Now we're just going to destroy, but you might want to call animations, or what if you want to do when your character dies. The exact same instructions apply for every other class. If you're making an enemy class, you want to add the component, you want to add the include file, you want to create the sub object, and you want to bind it in begin play. You want to create the function with the u function, and inside here is whatever you want to happen when you die in game. Now that you have death sorted, what about adding health? Well, we can literally copy paste this and change the minus to a plus, change the damage to health. And that's adding health. We will never go above our max health. And set health, we can do the exact same thing, except make it equals and health. And there we go. We can start, or actually, so inside our third person, we're going to create a global UI folder because we want the health for the enemy and the player. Create a new user interface widget blueprint and just use the common user widget blueprint, so WB HP underscore health bar. And inside the designer, we want to create progress bar. Scale it as so. The fill color should be red, and we can test this by going to percent and moving it, see how it feels. I think that's good. We can click this here button to create a binding. It might be different on older versions. And we can create a local variable. Let's make it only health comp. Search for health component, and we can just get the health component. We can get current health. We can divide it and set max health. We right click this and change this to float double, and we compile, and that could work. That could do just fine. But the problem is that this is being called every single tick. Normally it's fine, but when you're doing big games and you have loads of these, it's gonna cause issues. So instead of doing that, if we go back to Visual Studio, we can create another delegate called onHealthUpdate. And copy paste this, f on health update, and name the variable here, name the function I should say, because this is more or less a function, but it counts as a variable. Copy paste this. On def should be changed to on health update, and call this on every one of these functions. And I just realized begin player should have that health be max out. But yeah, now we can close the editor, make sure to save it, compile. Right, I have errors. Let's find out. Oh, I made a typo. Make sure this here is the same as whatever is up here. I'm actually going to create a dedicated widget for the player. So inside blueprints, this will be our player folder. So we can do player UI, create a new widget, blueprint, user widget, blueprint, player HUD, add a canvas, and we can search for a widget blueprint, and here's our health bar. We can anchor this down below. I'm assuming you know how it works, but just control click and shift click the bottom left anchor. We can scale this. We have our health bar. Inside here, the get percent, we can delete that binding, and we can create a custom event called set HP. And in here, we can get an input of health component, search for health component. And then we can get current health, get max health, divide, right click this and change it to float double. Hit the progress bar, set percent, and that's all we need to do. It will only update when required. I get an error here, and that's because it is still binded. We can remove the binding here. Let's go to our player, and we can create event begin player. Create widget, and it'll be a player HUD. Move this to a variable, let's call it HUD, and we can get our health bar widget, and we can call that HP. It requires a health component, so inside here we can just drag this and it'll be there. Or if you click on a health component as well, we can go down to events and press the plus on health update. We can just copy this here, this set HP with the health component going in. There's an error. That is when we get our HUD and we get our health bar. We also want to make sure this is valid. And then one with the question mark. And if we press play, there's no HUD applied. Oh, I forgot to add the viewport. And there we go, we have full HP. And if we set health to 5, we have 5%. And then if we add a delay, and then we take damage, 50, we die. Now we know it works. Now we need to add it to another actor. Let's make another. Let's go to a temporary folder. I already had one made. And we can make a temp actor. This can be your enemy or any boxes or destructibles you want to also have health. We can add a cube. We can add a health component. Let's set the health to something like 5. We can also add a widget. And we can do this bar. Just pull it up here, scroll down till you see user interface. We can set the widget class to our health bar. We can change the draw size to 225. Looks about right. And you can see we can look past it. You can do programming to make it so that it automatically rotates or it hides, or you can set it to screen and it will go invisible, but once you start playing the game it will show. I do recommend making it so it's only visible from a certain range. We can drag this actor in here, and once again we're going to need to go begin play, grab our health bar, get the widget, and then cast it here, health bar, and this will always return true. We can promote this to a variable. HP bar. And we can call our set HP. Drag our health component out and click on the health component, do another health update. Grab our HP bar, set HP. Grab our HP, our health component. And finally, we want to do an on-dev because we haven't programmed this in yet. And we can just destroy the actor. Drag this in, press play, and you can see we both have health bars. We can error here, that is because our widget, we need to check it's valid, but it didn't crash the game. It's not a crucial error. It's just annoying to see pop-up messages all the time. And that's all. We can also get a health component, health to 2. Keep in mind the health for this box is 5, so it is almost dead. Right now when we attack, it doesn't do anything. Now it is up to you to go on your attack, and instead of destroying the actor or whatever you currently have, you get the other actor. You need to go to other actor, get component by class, the health component. You also want to save that as a variable. I'm just going to call it HC, and if is valid HC, We don't need to destroy it. We need to do health component, take damage, and let's do 50. And if we close and play, we can press play. Well, first of all, we need to give it that. We can press play, and it destroys. We set our temporary actor to have more health. For some reason, our collision on our sword isn't perfect, but it gets destroyed. That's all for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. But yeah, enjoy.